We are live. By the way, I don't like this new YouTube thing. I have more buttons to click just to get to where I used to be.
Uh, well, that's because they're trying to do away with
Hangouts.
Hangouts and buy Twitter and replace merge Twitter and YouTube.
Okay. I didn't realize they were buying Twitter.
Yes, Twitter's for sale, and they and another company are bidding for it, and their stock jumped 20% on Friday.
Oh, dang. People tell me Twitter's not worth anything, but you say you're going to buy them and your stock jumps 20%. Like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, I knew Twitter was for sale. I just didn't realize Google was going to buy them. That makes sense, and I think it'll do better in the hands of Google.
Google and somebody else are the two companies that are trying to get it. I forget who the other company was.
Man, anybody that was going to buy Yahoo is probably not going to buy them now. At this point, you're just going to sell Yahoo for parts.
They are.
Yeah. All right. Counting down.
Nope. Now, can't go.
You sure?
No. Okay, now I'm ready.
Are you sure?
Yes. I assume I sound fine.
Yeah, you sound fine.
Okay, good.
Are you completely sure?
I'm positive.
Are you surely sure?
Yep. Final answer.
Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1.
What is up? This is the 6 months behind podcast for the week of 9/19/16. I'm Pat.
And I am Sean.
And this is another wonderful week of the Marvel Unlimited comic books that we are happy to come to you and discuss. How you doing, my brother?
I'm all right, man. Just got back from vacation. Spent a couple days on the beach. It was a good time.
I'm glad. I'm glad you had a good time. You enjoyed it with your family. That's good. That's good. I worked a lot because actually my boss was somewhere on the Gulf Coast with you. So while you were relaxing, I was working very, very hard.
Well, somebody's got to.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Good week of comic books.
Yeah. I was going to say, we've got quite a few to discuss this week. They dumped like 21 books on us this week. That's a little unusual for
21 new books, not counting the old books they dumped.
Yeah, not counting all the other stuff, all the classic stuff. I think it turned out to be like 42 books in all.
42 books, including the one they dumped literally 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, literally 5 minutes ago.
You and I are reviewing books for the podcast. We're like sitting here telling me, yeah, we got that. Okay, we got that. Dude, where'd that book come from?
Yeah.
Literally, it wasn't there like 2 hours ago, and now it is.
Yep. I don't understand that logic, but whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
So if you want to get in touch with us, if you have any opinions or insane political rantings, send them to 6monthsbehind@gmail.com. That's the number 6monthsbehind@gmail.com. You can also visit our website at
www.sixmonthsbehind.com, where you can escape the insanity of the political season and just escape into the world that is comic books.
Lots of that going on here lately.
Yes.
I've been trying to escape myself.
Yes. And they're in the website. I posted March's sales figures, which the comics we're getting now. Yes, let me finish.
Okay.
The comics we're getting now are coming out in September. And if you look, they've all got March release dates on them.
Okay, I see.
So it's March's sales figures. So March's sales figures coincide with the books that are coming out this month on Unlimited. And I actually found another article that really breaks it down much better, but then I didn't post it. I may go back and post it. And there's a couple of books this week, like, I'll tell you what they are. They're Howling Commandos number 6. It's the last issue we'll get of Howling Commandos.
Yeah.
So we'll get Angela number 6, then we'll get one more issue of Angela. And we're really going to talk about that Angela book when we get to it. But these two books are being canceled. I think Weird World has a couple of issues left. Red Wolf has a couple of issues left.
Thank God.
When we did Black Knight a couple of weeks ago, it was already canceled.
Yeah.
So this is Marvel as they rebooted the all new, all different. Some of these were obviously didn't work out. I really thought the Angela book would.
I kind of thought so too. In fact, I actually read it this week in anticipation because the storyline changed.
Yeah, and it just went nowhere, and that was a bad story. But we'll discuss it when we get there. And the sales figures are interesting because, excuse me, the sales figures are interesting because they're really going up, but some of these books are just really doing bad. I mean, the sales numbers for this Howling Commando book are down in the 7,000, 7,000s. And just to give you an idea, the high end are around 100,000 for the top end books, like the Spider-Man Daredevil, Spider-Man Deadpool book, excuse me.
Right.
The Avengers books, the Gwenpool book, all the top selling books, they're between 80 and 100,000. That Howling Commando book was selling 6,000 and 7,000 copies. That Angela book is selling 6,000 or 7,000 copies. It's just bad, man. It's just
and I mean, like I love that Weird World book and that Black Knight book, and I like the Howling Commandos book. I'd keep reading it if they were going to continue publishing it. But at those sales figures, you just can't justify continuing the series.
No, they're just selling less than 10,000 copies, and there are things that tie into it. I mean, if you can move a trade, if you can tie it into other merchandising, if you can tie it into a movie, maybe you can justify it. But there was nothing to justify it with these stories. I mean, it's just there's nothing justifying it to keep these books going. Right,
and I don't think it's the last time we're going to see Dum Dum Dugan and those Howling Commandos.
No.
They're going to show up again somewhere. They'll pop up in another book. We're going to go back to Weird World. Half the Avengers books are taking place in Weird World these days.
Yeah, I find those numbers interesting, and the funny thing about those numbers, I know you don't like it, and I think it's a so-so book, but that Spider-Man Deadpool book is like the number 7 best-selling book out. It was number 7 on the list, outselling all the Avengers titles, all the X-Men titles, outselling the Pleasant Hill launch book. Dude, I sold everything, man. I don't think it's that great, but apparently the rest of the world does.
You stick Deadpool in something, and you can sell anything.
And apparently you stick Spider-Man and Deadpool together, and it flies off the presses.
Deadpool was already kind of bubbling under the surface of pop culture. Then that movie came out a few months ago, and it just exploded. He's easily become the most recognizable Marvel character all of a sudden. It used to be Spider-Man and Wolverine.
He's everywhere, man.
Yeah, he's everywhere. You can't walk into a...
Ryan Reynolds is making Deadpool commercials for everything. They can't get that sequel out fast enough.
Yeah, and to think they gave Ryan Reynolds a bunch of crap about making the movie way back when.
And they did it on a limited budget. I mean, you look at the budget for the Superman Batman movie and the X-Men movies and the Captain America movie, Civil War. They made that movie for like $50 million.
Yeah, I mean, which is not a lot.
No, most of it is shot in interior scenes in that shipyard. I mean, that's where most of it is shot. They made it for nothing, man.
And it's become a cultural phenomenon. One that I don't necessarily understand, but whatever.
I don't get it, brother. I do not get it. Anyway, on to this week's comic books, which is a good selection of comic books. It's a good group, man.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good week overall. Starting off with the Spider-Man books, we had 2 this week, starting with Web Warriors number 5. So if you haven't been reading this book, it involves a number of Spider-Men from different universes, not all Peter Parker, of course, um, coming together and saving or defending universes that do not have Spider-Man. And in this most recent story arc, it involves them fighting a group of Electros who are doing the same thing, but from like a villainy standpoint, if that makes sense. So you have all these Electros from other universes who have banded together to do evil things. And this was the conclusion of that particular story.
Yeah, and I was a little confused by the ending because they left a couple or one of the Spider-Man behind to defeat those Electros. Did he survive that? Did they go back and get him?
It is implied that they did survive. There's one or two that get left behind because what they do is they basically drop this webbed.
It's a non-conductive webbing.
Yeah, it's a Faraday cage webbing that they trap them all under and send them back to their time or whatever. And two of them get stuck behind in that dome, and it's implied at the end that they may have survived, which I think is going to lead into the next story. I think they're going to go find them.
Right. So, yeah, this was a good book.
Yeah, I mean, it has this, it strikes this nice balance of serious storytelling with serious consequences and lighthearted funniness with the addition of Spider-Ham and just some of the interactions with the other characters.
Right. Yeah, I enjoyed this. It was, which is saying something because I haven't enjoyed this book a lot, but this was a good issue.
Yeah, I really hope this continues. Hey, quick question.
Yes.
Who's the Spider-Man with the like lower half mechanical spider body?
Dude, I don't know. There's too many to keep track of.
I'm not sure when he got introduced, and I'm not sure who he is, but he seems to be leading the group now.
And I don't say that flippantly. There's too many to keep track of. This spins out of the Spider-Verse storyline, where there was literally dozens, if not at one point there were hundreds of Spider-Men all coming together from across the multiverse. And at this point, there's maybe a couple of dozen of them coming and going in this Web Warrior series, and I still have trouble keeping track of where they're all from and who they all are.
Yeah.
So when I say I can't keep track of them, I literally can't keep track of them.
Right. Like, I mean, in this issue and the last couple issues, actually, you know, a lot of the story takes place in like this Victorian era where, you know, the Spider-Man from that era is, you know, has these mechanical arms that are steam powered and stuff like that.
Right.
You know, so to give you an idea, it's just a lot. Think of all the different possibilities of Spider-Man, and that's what this book is.
Yeah.
And I've really enjoyed it.
Including Spider-Ham, which makes it entertaining.
Right. A pig who is also a Spider-Man. Yeah.
He gets insulted when you call him a pig.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Silver
anyway, very
6.
good. I'm enjoying this series too. This is one of those series that I was on the fence about, and I have really enjoyed. Even, and you know, we're 6 issues in now, and this is another one where they're wrapping up the current storyline. And I thought it was good. If you're not familiar with Silk, I forget exactly how she ended up with Spider-Man powers, but she was locked in this laboratory and experimented on by her parents for like 10 years. Then she gets released and decides to become a superhero. And she's been working undercover as a double agent for S.H.I.E.L.D. while also working for Black Cat and investigating the Goblin Nation. So that it's really the conclusion of that in this book here.
Yeah, and she's being debriefed by Mockingbird in this issue, and this is really an interesting issue because as she's being debriefed, it's one of those cases where she's not getting Stockholm syndrome, but she's beginning to sympathize with what Black Cat's doing, because she's realizing that Black Cat isn't necessarily evil, but she's not good. And she just straight up asked Black Cat what she's doing, and she's like, "Look, I'm not good or bad. I'm just out here doing things." You know, and Black Cat, I forget how she puts it. She's like, "I'm not on this side of the street or that side of the street. There just are no streets for me. I'm just out here doing it." And
Right. There, you know, there's no black or white. It's all gray.
right, and Silk kind of, I think she relates to her, and she and Mockingbird have some real issues over that.
Yeah, it seems to be. In fact,
Yeah,
Mockingbird takes her off the case or tries to.
yeah. So
I
it
don't
was
think that's going to work out for her, but
right. This was a really good issue. I really enjoyed this issue.
yeah, I did too. And Tana Ford is doing the art, and the art is fantastic too.
Yeah,
There's a particular panel where her and Black Cat literally take on the whole Goblin Nation by themselves. And she throws the leader off a tower, and it's this panel where you just see the silhouette of the tower and the body falling off the tower with a red background. It's a really cool panel.
yeah,
But yeah, Silk, even from the beginning, has always kind of straddled the line between hero and villain, and she's always occupied that gray area. And I think, I don't know, she's one of those that I think you could see, you know, go to the other side for good reasons.
right. Yeah,
And you know, she's dealing with her anger issues. You know, the whole issue starts with or ends with her talking to her therapist, and her therapist is telling her she's not dealing with her anger and all that sort of thing.
by the way,
Which,
we did not give our traditional spoiler warning. So
oh yes,
this is our spoiler warning. We do give spoilers in this show. If you don't want spoilers, go back, read the comics, then come back and listen to the show.
yes. So there's your spoiler warning, because there is stuff we're going to talk about later. Yeah. Anyway, Silk number 6, great book. Glad I'm reading it.
Yeah, we have no X-Men books this week, so
I noticed no X-Men books. We got 21 new comic books and no X-Men books.
I think we had like 2 or 3 last week and none this week.
Yeah.
So it's all good. It's all good. You were at you. By the way, as a side note, and carrying us back to something you were asking me last week, I think you were asking me about the publishing dates on these things and how these books were coming out so fast. Some of these books are getting published twice a month. When I was looking at the sales figures, we're getting 2 Vader books this month. We're going to get Vader 17 and 18 this month, or we already did. Some of these books are coming out twice a month, which is why it seems like we're getting them so fast. I don't know why. I don't know why Marvel is publishing them like this. They just are, man. I have no idea why.
Yeah, they've always kind of done that. You know, if they've got a book that they want to promote real heavily, they'll publish it twice a month. In fact, for a while, they were literally publishing Spider-Man 3 times a month.
Yeah,
you were getting an issue of Spider-Man every week but one.
right. So what happens is it'll seem like you'll get a book every week, and then say Contest of Champions, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. It seems like we haven't gotten it in 2 or 3 months because it's actually been 4 weeks since we got it. So it seems like it's been forever, but that's because it's actually on a regular monthly shipping schedule.
Right.
Right.
Whereas some of these, and I kept noticing, because I'd be like, oh, hey, a new issue of this. Wait a minute. Didn't we just get another one 2 weeks ago? Didn't I just read this?
Yeah. So when if you look at that sales figures chart, which by the way is on the website, www.sixmonthsbehind.com, if you look at that website, you see some of these books have shipped twice in the month. And by the way, it helps their sales, coincidentally.
Yeah.
It helps their sales, but you see they're shipping twice a month, which is why we're seeming to get them so often. Anyway, that brings us to the Avengers section, all new, all different Avengers number 7.
Yep. This ties into the Pleasant Hill event going on, at least a little bit. But we actually start the issue with Sam Wilson having a conversation with a depowered Jane Foster, who if you didn't know, Jane Foster is Thor, but when she's not being Thor, she's Jane Foster who's dying of cancer.
Yes.
And right now, I think Sam Wilson's the only one that knows who she is.
He is, and she is very careful to make sure that he keeps that secret.
Right, and they have this conversation about why she's continuing to do what she does. She's going through chemotherapy, but every time she powers up as Thor, it cancels it all out. And they have this conversation about whether, she's doing it for noble reasons or this is just her way of committing suicide.
And it's both.
Yeah, it seems to be both.
Yeah.
You also have an interesting scene with Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, and the Vision. She's in school and, of course, trying to do a math problem that she probably hasn't studied for, and he's posing as her teacher, and they meet up on the roof, and it's basically Vision's way of trying to say, "Hey, sorry about getting taken over by Kang the Conqueror and stabbing you in the back and all that."
Yeah. Let me tell you my favorite part of this book. Last week or week before, I think it was last week, we had Uncanny Avengers number 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw them attacking Pleasant Hill. And at the end, you had a Quinjet with Maria Hill in it flying toward those Uncanny Avengers. In this issue, we get the all-new, all-different Avengers getting in that Quinjet with Maria Hill piloting it, flying toward those Uncanny Avengers, and then getting in a fight with them. So you get that scene from two different perspectives. And you get the two different Maria Hills from two different perspectives, and you get them fighting, and you get the whole scene from two different. It's like a movie being shot from two different
perspectives.
Thank you. I've used the word about 6 times now. I was looking for. I was going through my mental thesaurus trying to find another word.
Yeah, well, it works.
It was really good writing, but I mean, whoever laid it out, it was really entertaining. And this book's got a really good ending that I'm really looking forward to seeing the next issue of. Right.
Yeah. So you see these Avengers throw down with each other essentially, and they're all trying to figure out why there's 2 Maria Hills running around. Then Kobik shows up. Kobik is the sentient fragment of the Cosmic Cube who is the power behind the Pleasant Hill project. And she does some stuff. I'm not going to give a spoiler there, but it's an interesting ending. What do you think is the deal with these 2 Maria Hills running around?
I don't know, man. We talked about it on the phone one day. If y'all think this podcast is the only time we talk about comic books, you're terribly mistaken. We talked about it on the phone one day, just trying to figure out what was happening here, because there's at least 2, maybe 3 or 4 Maria Hills running around. And I don't know. I don't know where they're all coming from. If the Kobiak made them, if they're LMDs, if Maria Hill's gone mad and made LMDs of herself, I don't know, man.
Those are the 2 prevailing theories. Either that, Kobik has assumed the identity of Maria Hill in some way, or that there's just a bunch of Maria Hill LMDs running around.
But the LMDs are fighting each other at the end.
Right. Yeah, which makes me lean more towards the Kobik theory that she's impersonating Maria Hill.
Yeah, I don't know
that perhaps Maria Hill is not either one of them. The real Maria Hill is in a tube somewhere, I
think Maria Hill might be brainwashed somewhere in Pleasant Hill.
Right, yeah, that's what I'm thinking, is that, she's one of the citizens of Pleasant Hill while Kobik has assumed her role.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to see where this Pleasant Hill thing's going.
Yeah, I really am looking forward to it.
It's
because I know some of the ramifications of it, but I don't know how the storyline itself plays out. So I'm looking forward to both. I'm looking forward to the storyline plays out, and seeing the ramifications that I know are coming come.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of a different event than we normally get. Oftentimes, these events are, big villain happens and does a bad thing, and all the superheroes get together, and there's a big fight, and stuff happens, and somebody might die, and then they defeat the villain. And, oftentimes, all these events are just rehashes of that same formula, and this seems to be something a little different.
No, they're um, just to chase a rabbit for a moment. This is really a moral issue
Hmm.
for Marvel. Is it right to imprison these people like this? Is it right to do it in this manner? And this is essentially leading straight into Civil War, where, without discussing what Civil War is about, well, I can't discuss what Civil War is about because everyone knows what Civil War is about. I assume you know what. Do you know what Civil War is about?
A little.
There's a new Inhuman who
Yeah.
can predict the future, and what he basically sees is what villains are going to do before they do it, so they're able to go arrest the villain before he does it. There was a movie about it, I think, with Tom Cruise, maybe.
Oh, yeah,
And
it's kind of like Minority Report.
yeah, so they're able to go arrest the villain before they do it. So the question that arises among the superhero community that leads to Civil War is it right for someone to commit a crime before he actually does it? And that's what leads to Civil War. So both in Pleasant Hill here, the question in Pleasant Hill, is it morally right to completely brainwash these people and make them forget who they are and imprison them in this manner? And then the moral question in Civil War is it right to arrest someone for a crime they haven't committed? And obviously the superheroes wind up on both sides of that in Civil War, and there's lots of ramifications, and there's villains and heroes doing things, and there's heroes that die, and it's great.
Yeah, all
I
the
just
while
read issue
exploring
5 this
this.
week.
Yeah,
Right, exploring, and in both series, both Pleasant Hill and Civil War, they're exploring the moral ramifications of what they're doing. I think it's really good writing in both series because I'm reading Civil War as it comes out in print, and I'm reading Pleasant Hill now, and I'm really enjoying both of them.
yeah. Anytime, I think writing, particularly comic book writing and science fiction writing in general, is at its best when it's asking these moral questions. When you can take a hot button issue or a moral question and reframe it in a way using superheroes or aliens or whatever, and you use those vehicles to explore a particular moral or uh, um, well, a moral question. I think that's really when fiction writing is at its best, when you can explore those things.
Yeah, you make it entertaining, but you make the reader think about an issue or a subject matter as they're doing it. That's when you've done something.
Right, I agree.
Okay, all right. That brings us to the 616 universe. And how do you pronounce this hero's name?
Hyperion,
I ask you first.
Hyperion,
We're going to go with
Hyperion.
that. Hyperion.
Yeah.
Okay. Number one.
Did you read this book?
I did. I take it you did
Okay.
not.
I read the first couple of pages, but then we got busy at work, and I just hadn't had time to go back to it.
This what he's doing, and they've kind of been exploring this in the Squadron Supreme, and I was really wondering about this when they came out with Squadron Supreme. Is he's been a hero? He's been an Avenger
For a little while.
for several years now, and the Squadron Supreme is a group of villains. Maybe not villains, but they're crossing that moral line we just talked about. They've killed Namor. They're out doing things that you know they're not making things gray. They're out doing the black. So, and he's not entirely comfortable with it. He's not. If you've read the Squadron Supreme books, he's not comfortable with it at all. And in this
No.
book, in this book, he's just kind of out trying to find himself. Just he's really just out driving around the country being a truck driver, and he picks up
Yeah,
this
when he's not being an Avenger, he's a truck driver.
right when he's not with Squadron Supreme, he's been a truck driver, and he picks up this little runaway who has researched him and knows who he is. She knows he's Hyperion, and she needs his help. And he's like, "That's not who I am." And she's like, "Yeah, I know you are." Nope, that's not me. So they're traveling down the road, and she's trying to get away from is a bunch of carnival people who apparently have superpowers,
Yeah,
and they continue to be
superpowered
attacked by these
carnies.
people. Yeah, superpowered carnies. Thank you. And they continue to be attacked, and he does everything in the world to evade them and not use his superpowers. And at the end, it doesn't work, and he eventually has to fight back. And in issue 2, I don't think it's going to end well for those carnies. I
No,
just don't
probably
think
not.
it is. No,
Based
I don't.
on the last page, I haven't read it, but I did flip through it, and yeah, based on what happens in that last panel, nah, it's not going to work out for him.
No, it's really not. It's really not. No.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back and read this because I did want to read it. I just work got busy and I ran out of time. We had so many books to read this week that I just didn't. It didn't happen. All new Hawkeye #5.
Yeah, we've been very critical of this book.
Yeah, because I really like this book. I really like Hawkeye and Kate Bishop, and I like what they're doing. But man, they just keep trying to wring more story out of this whole tale they've been telling with these alien kids.
Well, they finally wrapped the thing up this issue.
Yes, finally.
Finally, thank goodness. And it there's a mystery as to how they did it. And what they basically did was that they conned Maria Hill into thinking that the kids died. Is what they did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kate and Clint got together, con Maria Hill into thinking the kids died. The whole while you got flashbacks into thinking that Kate was in Kate's childhood.
Right. You get to see Kate as a kid and kind of what's led to her becoming Kate Bishop.
Right. So I don't know. It was okay. I mean, it's okay. I really, really hope the book progresses forward from this.
And I think it will. It's not that this has been a bad story, but it's just that this is the second volume of this series that has dealt with this particular storyline, and it's just gone on too long.
It's going on entirely too long. I really hope they progress forward from this and do something else with these characters.
Yeah, it was something I was like, okay, this is cool, and then I just found myself not caring because it was the same thing over and over.
Right.
And it's like, okay, you can do more with Kate Bishop and Clint Barton working together than this.
Yeah.
Okay, tell this story, let's wrap it up and move on.
Right.
Yeah, it felt like a movie that should have ended 30 minutes ago.
Yeah, that pretty well sums it up. That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Then you have the Illuminati #5.
Has this book been canceled yet?
Yes.
Is this the last issue?
No, I think there's one more after this one.
Okay, because I skipped it entirely.
I had hopes for this book, and
Yeah, me too.
we've discussed this, and I will say it briefly for people who haven't listened to our rants on earlier podcasts. New TV shows started coming out this week. It's premiere week for TV shows.
Yeah.
And some of these premieres have to really, really be strong. I watched the new Kiefer Sutherland show, Designated Survivor. Really strong premiere. Watch the Lethal Weapon. You know what? Here's the thing about Lethal Weapon. Is Renee actually watched it with me
Mm-hmm.
and enjoyed it. Okay? She sat there and really laughed and enjoyed the premiere. That's how good that premiere was. Okay? It did, because I knew I wanted to watch it.
Sure.
Now the question was, could it get me to watch the second episode? Here's the thing. It was so good, it had her laughing and her ready to watch the second episode. The problem with this book is it sucked so bad in issues 1, 2, and 3 that now that issue 5 is finally worth a flip, it's canceled and nobody cares. You didn't even care to read issue 5. And now that they have finally gotten to what's happening, which is essentially the Hood sold his soul to the devil to get more power, to power up Titania, okay? And you find out his castle is in hell because he sold his soul to the devil to get more power and to power up Titania.
That's why nobody can. Okay.
All right. See, now that you learn all these things, well, if you told us that in issue 2 or issue 1, we might have given a flip. But you just wandered through the woods, and the book was so bad in those first few issues that it got canceled because it sucked so bad in the beginning.
Yeah, because in like the very first or second issue, they're all the villains that the Hood has assembled are wandering around his mansion or whatever, and they're like, "Yeah, I can't figure out how to leave. There's no doors," and that makes sense because it's in hell.
It's in hell. We find out through issue 5 it's in hell. Give us a screenshot at the end of issue 1 showing us it's in hell as a teaser. That's not rocket science.
Or even just hint at it.
Yeah.
Just a hint.
Show us that they're all powered up in issue 1, and then talk about how they got there in issues 2 through 5.
Yeah. And I mean, even in the first or second issue, hinting that something is amiss, that, the Hood has done something, that his mansion is not where you think it is. Just a small hint would have been enough. That's what they're doing with this Carnage book that we're going to talk about in a couple minutes.
Instead, in issues 1 through 4, they made them look like a bunch of losers, and then they try and make them look like they've got the power cosmic in issue 5, and nobody cares because everybody's quit reading the book.
Right. And by the time it gains momentum, it's been canceled.
Exactly.
Which, I guess you could make the argument that if you're going to have a series like this, the editors need to support the book beyond 5 or 6 issues before making the call to cancel it. But, sometimes you just got to make that call.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's skip a book. Let's go to Angela, Queen of Hell, number 6.
Okay.
All right. So they finished with that first 5 issue story arc.
Yeah, which was really interesting.
Which was really good.
Yeah.
And then they pick up this story arc number 6, and you got to bear with me. Did you read this?
I did, but essentially the first 5 issues was Angela conquers hell.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, she just shows up and conquers hell.
Right.
At the end of it, she does what she wants to do, frees whoever she wants to free, and then abdicates the throne. And her 2 friends and their really awesome dog leave hell and go get an apartment in Manhattan somewhere and are living pedantic lives.
So, and apparently in this issue, the only thing I can figure is somewhere around issue 4 or 5 that I'm looking. Margaret Bennett was told this thing was canceled. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because you once talked about penis jokes in Spider-Man and Deadpool. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot more sex jokes in this book.
There are.
Okay, and a whole lot more over the top sex jokes.
And that's kind of been a thing through the whole series. It's been a lot of references to
but dude, there's a lot more top in this issue.
In this issue, they're just hitting you in the face with it.
And then you get to a panel on page 14. This is our penultimate issue, Angela. If there's a place to pull out all the stops, wrap up the plot lines, and just get real crazy, this is it. Seriously?
Yeah. First of all, you're breaking the fourth wall, which it can be funny, but when you're doing it like this, it's lazy writing.
And by the way, I read both on Twitter and in articles, this is how people found out the book was canceled.
Good Lord.
Seriously. This is how everyone, that panel right there is how everyone found out the panel was canceled. Okay.
Yeah, it seems to me this might have been like a protest issue that the writer wanted to continue the series, and they told her it was canceled, so she just, she wrote.
Here's another box. Do you realize Briefport called us Marvel's most literary comic? Sarah, this is commercial suicide. Really? Then we get to page 17. Okay. We get to page 17, and they're talking about what's happening. Okay. They're talking about fighting the villain. All right. I make you this deal. In the next 22 pages, you will get the answer you're looking for.
Yeah, they just start breaking the fourth wall like crazy, and it really interrupts the flow of the book, and it's so out of character for these characters.
It's just like, I don't even know, man. It's like they just, and again, why didn't an editor step in and stop this?
I don't know.
Dude, why didn't the editor stop in and say, "Look, you can't do this. We're not going to allow this to go to print. You got to take these boxes out. Okay, you have to. I'm thumbing right now to see who edited the book.
Tom Brevoort.
No, he's the editor in chief. There's an editor
below
him that actually did editing.
Sure, but
Chris Robinson is the assistant editor. Chris Robinson is the assistant editor. Will Moss is the editor, and then Breveport's the editor in chief.
Right. The book ultimately stops with Breeveport.
Right, but Chris Robinson,
there's no way this thing didn't come across his desk.
Should have stopped and said, "Look, you got to fix these panels. You got to fix this writing." Because they're the ones that are supposed to proofread this before it goes to print. Instead, they're just like, you know what, the book's canceled. Screw it. This is what we're going to write. Seriously?
And it may have been one of those things where they just don't want to have a fight with the writer, and they said, "Canceled book. Write whatever you want. If you want your book to go out like this, fine. Whatever."
The last time I checked, Marguerite Bennett's name is not Brian Michael Bendis or Jonathan Hickman. Or Jason Aaron.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
I don't understand it.
I have heard some of these guys talk about what happens when writers and editors clash, and sometimes it's really not pretty, and sometimes decisions get made that I don't understand, and it's probably because I'm not in the room. This book was not very good. And it really could have been. Well, the idea that you're going to have 5 issues exploring Angela literally conquering hell, becoming queen of hell, and then she abdicates the throne and goes and lives in Manhattan, and they talk about going to IKEA. Like, dude, like, you have so much potential here, and that's what you're going to do with these characters?
Yeah.
In Manhattan and try to tell some sort of...
And make a bunch of sex jokes about finally having a bed in the bedroom and what she can... Well, never mind.
Yeah. Well, and that's... I don't care about that. But you're just going to have this pedantic story about civilian life living in New York with these, ridiculous characters.
And here's the thing. You had a chance for Thor and Angela to throw down, and instead we get this.
Yeah.
Okay. Meanwhile,
the only thing about
regularly scheduled programming.
Well, I was going to say the only good thing about this issue of Angela was the dog.
Yeah.
Dog who's he's a talking hellhound who is he just says really cryptic things at random. And
he saved the issue.
He didn't save the issue. He was the only good thing about the issue.
Okay.
Anyway, back to Contest of Champions number 6.
Meanwhile,
this book has been fantastic and keeps getting better.
It does. This was a great book.
So go ahead and tell us about this book.
What this book does is you start off with the Maestro and the Punisher from 2099 both being they're both choosing teams for the Collector and the Grandmaster. And what you get here is a flashback to how the Maestro wound up there on a relic of Battle World, and basically a piece of Battle World, and how this whole thing came about. It's basically the origin issue for the Contest of Champions.
Yeah.
And how this whole thing came about. Now it's more complicated than that, but it's really a pretty cool issue. And how the Maestro maneuvered his way into where he is and what's happening here. And it's pretty freaking cool. It's a good issue, man.
Right. I mean, the universe gets destroyed. The Maestro's just hanging out on this rock in space about to die. And all of a sudden the Collector and the rest of the Elders of the Universe show up and decide to have a contest for the power that's left in the universe. So what you have is the Maestro comes up with a plan, not just for survival, but to
he wants to recreate Battle World and rule it, and then when that's
right, he wants to seize this power. Yeah, he wants to seize this power. He sees an opportunity, and so he becomes the Maestro. He becomes the Collector's summoner, and they have this contest. And you see how this all came about with Punisher 2099, and then it flips back to current time, and he basically steals the power from not the Collector, but the other one,
the Grandmaster.
The Grandmaster. And then at the end there, he's gonna go. He's gonna go confront the Collector, and they're gonna. His whole thing is to seize this power.
Yes.
And then the Ultimates show up at the end, and that's going.
Yeah, this is a good book, only getting better. This is the end of the. This is obviously the end of the first story arc, which is number 6, which, as we always says, wraps up the first trade paperback. And issue 7 is only going to get better. When you get to that last panel, you realize issue 7's heading somewhere, and it's going to get better.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is this book is created to promote a video game. Could have been. They could have just thrown something together willy-nilly. Instead, they decided to really do something with it, and it might be one of the best books that they're publishing at the moment.
I have an iPhone 6 with, I believe it's 16 gigs. And 16 gigs sounds a lot, and it's really not, as we all know.
No.
Because it's really not.
It's why I'm upgrading to the 7, because the base model is 32 gigs.
Yes, I'm going to trade up to an iPhone 7 with 64 gigs, and when I do, I'm going to download Contest of Champions. There's 2 or 3 games I want to get. That's one of them when I trade up to the 64 gig model.
Cool.
That's the sole reason I'm getting an iPhone 7 is so I can get more storage space.
You're upgrading your phone so you can play Contest of Champions.
Not really. It's not that. It's when if you've seen the picture, the commercial where somebody's storage is always full.
That's me. My storage is always full.
It is. But I have to take pictures for work. If I have a problem at work, I got to take pictures of it. I'm continually juggling to keep a couple of gigs open on my phone.
Dude.
And I can't do anything.
I do good to keep a couple megabytes open. I literally, that message you get when it says, hey, your storage is almost full? I get that 10, 12, 14 times a day.
I understand. So
anyway.
It's just, I'm looking forward to trading up so I can get some games, and Contest of Champion is one of the ones I want to get.
Yeah, I don't play games on my phone a whole lot for that reason, because I'm just trying to keep space open.
Yeah, I know.
For the millions of podcasts and all the music I listen to.
There you go. Carnage number 6.
Now, you and I have traditionally not cared for this book.
No.
Somewhere in issue 3 or 4, they found this underground cult doing some weird stuff. You might remember.
It became a D&D book that you started enjoying.
Actually, no.
Okay.
No. So you have this underground, and I didn't think they were really going to go anywhere with it. But if you remember at the time, I said, anytime you find a cult worshiping something and having some powerful book written in a language you don't understand, kill them all. Kill them all. Kill them all. They're not doing anything good. It's all bad. It's not going to end well. I didn't think they were really going to go anywhere with that. I thought it was just, a little plot point. No. As we find out in this issue, Carnage has absconded with that book that gave him some sort of extra power, and now he winds up on a boat in the South Sea.
Yes. After he killed them all, by the way.
Yeah, after he killed all the cultists. Excuse me. So there's a panel here where he gets rescued by this lady in this boat, and he's severely injured. And it looks like he's missing both legs, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's just the way the panel's drawn. So this lady finds this book on him, and she starts flipping through it. And of course, it's written in a language no one understands. But she finds a map. And it's a map of the South Sea. Hang on, let me pull this up.
By the way, this is written by Gary Conway, who's been around forever. And the artist,
he created the Punisher.
Yeah, man, he's been around forever. Mike Perkins continues to do great art on this book. This is not a book that I would recommend or I necessarily enjoy, but great art. And Gary Conway does great work. This is simply not my cup of tea, but that doesn't mean that they're not doing great work on this book.
Yes. So she finds this map, and it has a circle of just open ocean with some coordinates, and then it has the phrase Fatagat Cthulhu. And for anyone who's ever read any of the H.P. Lovecraft books, they know exactly what that means.
I haven't.
What you see on this map and what Carnage is seeking out is the sunken city of R'lyeh, where dead Cthulhu waits dreaming. He's literally seeking out a dead elder god.
Okay.
For people like me who are huge H.P. Lovecraft buffs, that's a big deal. It's also a big deal because Cthulhu has tremendous amounts of power that it looks like Carnage intends to steal or do something with.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, he's already powered up some.
Yeah, he's been powered up by this book that he found, and of course he seems to possess or he transfers some of his power to this girl. It doesn't quite go the way he thought it would. I don't know what's going on with her. She tries to kill him, doesn't work out, and then all of a sudden she gets intercepted by John Jameson and Eddie Brock, who seem to be the team that are hunting Carnage. And we'll see where it's going to go. But man, this issue really got my attention this week.
Yeah. This was a good book.
Yeah, and I know it's not your cup of tea necessarily, but yeah, with the whole, and they're calling him something different. They're calling him Chthon in this book, but it's Cthulhu. That scratches a very particular itch of mine, and that it really got my attention.
Yes.
So if you are a Lovecraft fan, you might want to start reading this book, because I'm gonna.
I'll tell you how interested I am in our next book, which is Howling Commandos of S.H.I.E.L.D. number 6. I have already started looking at the Iron Man book, trying to figure out that girl's name.
Okay.
That's how interested I am in Howling Commandos number 6.
Yeah, this is the last issue of Howling Commandos. It's I've enjoyed the book for what it is. It's not like the greatest literary thing ever. However, I think this thing would make a fantastic Saturday morning cartoon. I keep saying that, but the way it's written, the way the stories flow week to week, I just think it'd be a really good cartoon.
Yeah, it's not bad. What's the monster's name? Big
Orgo.
orange guy.
Orgo.
Orgo. Orgo is captured and taken to Pleasant Hill. This is a Pleasant Hill tie-in, and the commandos go to Pleasant Hill to rescue him. Get there and find it in the chaos that is happening in the Avengers books, and they manage again. They're in contact with Maria Hill. Is that a second, third, or fourth Maria Hill? I don't know. Somehow they get him out of there. Who knows? They get him out of there, and everyone lives happily ever after.
Yeah, and they go on to have other adventures.
Yes.
It's essentially a wrap-up issue for the series.
You need 6 books to make a trade paperback, man. Come on.
Yep. Anyway, hopefully this is not the last time we see these Howling Commandos, because I think they're an interesting bunch, particularly with Hit Monkey and Zombie Agent Sitwell.
You know, and that's the thing. I really did like Hit Monkey, and it wasn't that this book was bad. I don't know, man.
It wasn't great. It was not a great book. I enjoyed it for what it was, mostly because I like you had a bunch of characters that I like. Dum Dum Dugan, Man Thing, Hit Monkey, Sitwell was funny. Orgo was entertaining. I kind of like Teen Abomination. You know, so you had a group that I like in particular, but it was not a great book. Again, if you read this thing, it reads like a Saturday morning adventure cartoon. And if I were 8, 9, 10 years old watching this on Kids WB while shoveling, you know, really sugary cereal into my face, it'd be the best thing ever.
And the thing is, first off, we're not buying these issues, so I'm not paying money for this.
No, I probably would not pay money for this book.
Right, you wouldn't pay money for it. You got 21 new books this week, and some of these books, probably 10 of these books, are maybe 12, are really great books, really good books. Okay, I mean, there's 10 to 12 of these that are in the very good to great category, and when you get something that's somewhere between, let's call it mediocre at best, I'm just like, okay.
Right.
Right.
So Iron Man number 1, International Iron Man number 1. Tell me about it.
This is it starts with it's basically a flashback book. It starts with Tony Stark, Iron Man, surrounded by a group of villains, and then it goes into a flashback when apparently Tony is a teenager.
I think he's a college student.
A college student, yes.
Yeah, we're retconning so that Tony Stark
is a teenager, by the way.
We're retconning again Tony's origins, so he's a college student in like the mid-90s.
You know, yeah. Anyway, they've changed his origin so many times. We got different parents.
In fact, this whole book, I think this whole book is about changing his origin story.
No, they did that in the last series. Well,
yeah, but I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to explore it a little more.
Well, what they discovered what they laid the foundation for in the last series is that he's adopted, but they never said who his parents are.
Well, a couple years ago, you had a whole storyline about how he was engineered in a test tube.
Yeah, well, I don't even know. I don't even care. It's written by Brian Michael Bendis. It's drawn by Alex Maleev.
Yeah, great art. Anytime you put Bendis and Maleev together, it's always a killer combo.
You know, I never liked the. I'm trying to see. Does Maleev do his own coloring?
I believe so.
I don't like the color of his art.
It's very dark.
It's very dark, and I like bright colors, and I don't like his coloring. It's not that I dislike the art. I don't like how dark and shaded it is, if that makes sense.
Occasionally, it does make it difficult to figure out what's happening in the panel, but I don't know. And maybe it doesn't work necessarily for this book. But the first time Alex Maleev and Brian Michael Bendis worked together was on Daredevil years ago.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Yeah, and this kind of art is perfect for a Daredevil book.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying he uses a lot of lights and darks in any what's the word I'm looking for?
Contrast?
Thank you. I was yes. He contrasts the lights and the darks together. So, like in this one, you have a lot of light blues and blacks.
Yeah.
And it just it's different. Anyway,
yeah, there's a panel that demonstrates this perfectly. You know, you have this Hydra agent who is about to shoot Tony Stark in the head, and it's a close up of the head of the Hydra agent, and he's got a gun pointed at him. The gun's very dark. The green uniform of the Hydra agent is very bright, but it leaves a silhouette with his eyes, and you can see the red underneath his eyes. It looks like Terminator. And it's a good example of kind of what his art style is.
Yeah, so I mean, I enjoy his art. It's the coloring. Now, I will say this: the art he did for the Jessica Jones TV show,
Yeah,
on Netflix, dude, that was great art. Okay,
yeah,
and it was colored different because it had a lot of bright colors. It was still real dark, but it was real bright colors. Dude, that was cool.
Well, if I remember correctly, Alex Maleev did the original art for that Alias book that Jessica Jones is based on.
I think he did, but he colored it different. So it doesn't. I just don't like the way this issue is colored. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Maybe he may not do his own coloring, or maybe sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't. I don't know.
Did you ever see the Echo series with Daredevil?
No, Paul Mountis did the color. So no, Alex did not do.
Issue?
Yeah, on this issue. So yeah, it is a different colorist.
Okay, see, I don't like the color in this. Like that Echo series he did in Daredevil,
Mm-hmm.
that was brilliantly colored, and it looked great, man. I mean, it was brilliant colors. Really looked good. Anywho.
Yeah, he's got this gritty art style that works really well for stuff like Jessica Jones and Daredevil. And even Spider-Woman, he did a Spider-Woman series a couple years ago. And I was fine with the color in this issue. But I don't know. It could have been a little brighter, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, Cassandra Gillespie is his girlfriend's name, the girl he's chasing in this book. And they have a history there. And turns out she's being chased by Hydra agents, and her family's being chased by Hydra agents. And this issue is essentially telling the backstory of her and Tony and how they meet and how their families meet.
Right, and how they know each other.
And how they know each other. And then at the end, you discover with the last panel, which I'm going to choose not to spoil. Now, if you choose to spoil it, that's on you. You discover how they're related in the future, or in the present, I should say.
Yeah, and you discover what their relationship is current day.
Yes.
Yeah.
So great,
a good first issue.
Yeah, by Bendis. Bendis is writing it. You know, it's going somewhere.
Yeah, you and I are a little bit of Bendis fanboys, so yeah, it's good. It was a good first issue. It's got me on the hook for the next one. The Infinity Entity #2. This is the series following Adam Warlock around after he's been resurrected, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead and give me your synopsis of this book, because I did read it. I just want to know what you thought.
I had hopes for this. It's Jim Starlin and Alan Davis, as we discussed last week when issue 1 came out. And I really hoped that Jim Starlin was going to do something with this. Instead, you have Adam Warlock wandering mindlessly through space. He runs into the In-Betweener. Then he chases Thanos around, not remembering who he is, not knowing what his powers are.
Right, and Thanos is dead, so it's just a dead body floating in space.
So it's a dead body floating in space. Then he finds Thanos killing everything, and he's trying to decide whether or not to talk to Thanos to stop him from killing everything.
Then he
finally
finds Galactus, who's also dead, but that doesn't make any sense because Galactus isn't dead.
And here's the running theme of this book. None of this crap makes any sense, and you get tired of reading it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was with it.
And I like Jim Starlin, and I've read enough of his work to know, he probably spent 3 years and 30 issues laying the groundwork for the Infinity Gauntlet. All right? Yeah. He's the guy that wrote the Infinity Gauntlet storyline that we're seeing play out in the Marvel movies. So his writing is on a level with Bendis and Hickman and Aaron and all these guys that we trust. And I want to trust that Jim Starlin knows what he's doing and this is going somewhere. But dear God, is this dragging and just not going anywhere, man?
Yeah, Holy right now it's Adam Warlock bouncing around time and space aimlessly.
I mean, I want to say I want to hope this is going somewhere and he knows what he's doing. But dude, this is old, man. It's just, if it was anybody else, I'd quit reading it.
Yeah, it goes back to that discussion we had about Illuminati #5. You got to hit it out of the park with the first couple of issues, or otherwise everyone's going to give up on it.
Dude, and it's just bad, man. It's and maybe #4 will be so great we'll go back and read issues 1, 2, and 3. But dude, it sucks right now.
Yeah, it's not. I'm reading it, but I sure wouldn't buy it if I were in a comic book store. Wouldn't even give it a second look. I would pick it. Oh, what's this? Oh, I don't care.
I would buy it because I trust Jim Starlin, but dude, it's bad, man.
You know what wasn't bad? Power Man and Iron Fist #2.
Iron Fist #2. Oh, yeah, that's so great.
This book, this was, again, and I keep doing this, and I have to learn to stop doing this. I have to stop being on the fence about certain books and just read them because I'm always surprised when I am. I like Luke Cage, I like Danny Rand, but I'm not a huge fan of the whole Power Man thing. But this book's really good, and it's only in its second issue.
This book is just, from them trying to get in, from Jessica Jones, not giving Luke Cage the car because she's mad at him. So Luke Cage has got to fit this teeny weeny compact car, to the dialogue between Danny and Luke, to the whole book, to them being in a fight, and Spider-Woman and Gwen,
Spider-Gwen, yeah,
sitting on a roof watching them, sitting there eating a cheeseburger, contemplating whether or not they should go help him, just hoping that Danny Rand's shirt gets ripped off so they can see his chest. Okay? This thing, from start to finish, is hilarious. It is just funny. This is a great book, man.
So to give you a quick synopsis, Luke Cage and Danny Rand used to be heroes for hire back in the 70s. We'll talk about that a little bit later, actually. But they meet up with each other in the first issue to meet their friend and former coworker who's being released from prison. And this is Danny's way of trying to get the old band back together. And Luke Cage doesn't want to do it. But they both get guilted into stealing something for this former coworker, not realizing what it was. And now they've really gotten themselves into some trouble. And so, yeah, you have them sitting in a diner, and Danny's in full costume as Iron Fist, and Luke's just like, dude, what are you doing? I'm just trying to eat my pancakes, and all these people are taking pictures of us. And, he's just like, don't you remember all the good times we used to have? And Luke's like, no, I don't, Danny. What are you talking about? And it's...
Yeah. And everybody that sees them is like, oh, it's true, they're back together. And Luke's like, no, we're not back. Oh, it's true, they really are back together. No, we're not. It's
Yeah, it's nice and lighthearted. Um, it's good. This is a really entertaining book. Yeah, the thing with Jessica Drew and Spider Gwen on the roof, just they're like, oh man, I really hope that shirt comes off. It's
Yeah,
just funny stuff, man.
the, finally Gwen looks at Spider-Woman and says, "Are we going to get involved?" And she says, "Only if his shirt doesn't come off and we have to go down there and rip it off." That's just funny, man. I've never heard of David Walker before, who wrote this, but he's just become one of my favorite writers. This is good.
Yeah. I also feel like in this issue, if I had read Power Man from the 70s, then I'd be seeing a whole lot of familiar faces. Because there's a bunch of characters in here that I assume showed up in those books years ago that are just kind of making quick cameos again. We've seen Misty Knight come back, but you got like, Ruby Thursday, Cockroach Hamilton, Rocket Racer, Hypno Hustler, Thunderball. Who are those two guys they get in a fight with in Gorilla Man, the Black Tarantula. Even the main guy that they stole that Soul Stone from.
Yeah, Tombstone.
Tombstone, yeah, Tombstone Lincoln. I feel like if I had read those books a long time ago, I would be familiar with all these faces. And that this would be a big nostalgia bomb for me if I were a follower of these books back in the day.
I just got an alert on my iPad and I'm going to go into a WWE rant, but I won't.
Yeah, please don't.
Okay.
Anyway, this book is really good. I'm going to continue reading it.
That is no way to book a match.
What match?
Cesaro and Sheamus do a best of 7, and then at the end of the 7, they ends in a no contest, which is basically a tie. Anyway.
That sucks.
I'm missing a WWE pay-per-view for this. But I have it in the network, so I'll go back and watch it anytime I want to.
I was going to say, you can go back and watch it. It'll be okay.
Yeah, it's all right.
Scarlet Witch number 4.
Do you realize the level of nerdism that we operate on?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're pretty out there. Hey, by the way, what you got me a birthday present that finally arrived like what?
A month later? Yeah.
I appreciate it. It's a Nelson and Murdoch t-shirt.
Attorneys at Law t-shirt.
Nelson, Attorneys at Law t-shirt. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I thought I saw it and I thought, yeah, you gotta have that.
Renee looked at it and Amanda looked at it and they're like, we don't get it.
Yeah, no.
I'm like, no, you don't. Other geeks will get it. You don't. It's okay.
Yeah, and that was the whole thing is like, to anybody else, it just looks like a t-shirt. But to the real nerds, they're like, yeah, I see what you're doing.
Yep, we get it. There you go. Gotta be a nerd. Okay, Scarlet Witch number 4.
So this is the first encounter with Scarlet Witch and the Emerald Warlock, who they have set up to be her arch nemesis through this whole thing.
Yeah.
She's walking the Witch's Road, which seems to be some sort of mystical path that is made of magic. I don't know. But she's been, in the previous issues, she's been investigating magical anomalies going on, and it's all led her to this Emerald Warlock guy. And first of all, the art in this book is fantastic. Chris Visions, artist and colorist, is doing the art. Fantastic. She has a really interesting interaction with her mother here, or the ghost of her mother. And it turns out she's not the first, Wanda Maximoff is not the first Scarlet Witch, that her mother was Scarlet Witch, and that there was some sort of inheritance of power there. Then you have her and Emerald Warlock. They exchange some words. I'm really trying not to spoil it for you. It's also a really wordy issue, and if you haven't been paying attention, it wouldn't make any sense for me to explain any of this dialogue, but he essentially tries to sap her power from her, and it blows up in his face.
Yeah, there was some good stuff there between her and Agatha Harkness, and her and her mother, and the conversation between her and the Emerald Warlock. This was a good issue. This was.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to get into it because if you haven't been reading it, it's just not going to make a lot of sense. But it really sets up the rivalry between the two of them, and I'm looking forward to the rest of this book. Do we know what the sales numbers are for this book?
No, but I can find out. You start talking about Starbrand and Night Mask, and I'll find out.
Because I'm really hoping it doesn't get canceled. I really want this series to continue, and hopefully it's selling well enough to go on. Starbrand and Night Mask was okay. If you haven't been reading it, you have Starbrand and Night Mask, who are cosmic entities, who they're teenagers possessing cosmic power. They're enrolling in college and also trying to keep the universe from being destroyed. Night Mask has some interesting interactions with the In-Betweener, as well as Eternity, who he's related to in some way. I'm not really sure what's going on. They make mention of they need to destroy the Earth so that the universe can die, and so that the children of Eternity can do what they do and balance to be restored. And this is not the first time we've heard this. That somehow when the universe ended, and then you had Secret Wars, and then you had Reed Richards take the power and reform the universe, that somehow that was an unnatural act and was not supposed to happen. And that there are these forces out there that are trying to destroy the universe again so that they can rebirth it in their own way. I'm not really sure. But we saw it with Mordred. No, who is that? Who's that villain that we saw in that all? Not all. I can't keep all my Avengers books straight.
I can't either. But and they're all.
The one where they're all on AIM Island, and
that's the New Avengers.
Yeah, Wiccan gets possessed by this ancient magical entity.
He thought the world was wrong too, and wanted it changed.
Right, he's another one of these ancient cosmic entities that wants to destroy the universe because it's out of balance. So I don't.
There's a lot of Deadpool books.
Dude, yeah. Again, you stick Deadpool in anything, and it's going to sell.
Anyway, keep going.
So you have them kind of wrap up some of their story with these cosmic entities who are trying to power up these D-list villains. That goes okay. Then they throw a kegger in their dorm. That seems to go all right. Starbrand's powers are out of whack. He seems to be having issues controlling his abilities. Don't know what's going on with that.
This is a good book because
it's okay.
Well, let me tell you why I enjoyed it. Because Starbrand, I'm through researching now.
Okay.
Starbrand learned to control his powers a little bit, and you actually saw a little bit of character development, both on the hero side and in the individual side. So I actually, it's like they progressed the story a little bit, so it didn't completely suck. Does that make sense?
Okay. I actually got finished with the issue and went, I don't know if I'm gonna keep reading this.
Well, in looking at everything I just saw, I think it's been canceled.
Oh well, okay.
So
that's not a surprise.
I don't think you're going to have to keep reading it because in the numbers I was looking at, I think it was canceled. However, Scarlet Witch is selling very well.
Okay,
and
good.
As of August, it hasn't been canceled. It seems to be selling good. Up there with Spider Woman, the Thunderbolts, the Spider Books, Carnage.
Okay, good. It's got
good.
solid numbers. It's doing solid sales.
It's got numbers that'll keep it around.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's good because I've really enjoyed this book.
I think this book, Star Brand Night Mask, winds up getting canceled. I'm fairly certain of it. I think I've read it somewhere.
Good, because I'm not really. I'm having a hard time hanging on.
Okay.
Squadron Supreme #5. Did you read this?
Yes, I did. The problem was I read it very early in the week, and this is one of those inside baseball things. The books come out on Monday. We record the podcast on the weekend, so sometimes there's 4, 5, 6 days between when we read a book and then we record, so we kind of forget what we've read early in the week.
Yeah, it was the same with me too. I think I read this Tuesday.
I'm fairly certain this was one of the first books I read, so I had to go back and reread it, and or just I glanced through it right before we started the podcast so I could remember what happened in this book. The Squadron Supreme basically defeats
Dr. Druid.
Dr. Druid.
Yeah.
Thank you. They team with Akron Crystar and Skrull the Slayer. They defeat Dr. Druid and find their way back to Earth. It's basically the wrap up of their little adventure in Weird World. Yes.
And apparently it's not the last we're going to see of Dr. Druid.
No. So it wasn't a bad issue. They developed some characters there. They kept the storyline moving forward, and I thought it was a good issue.
Yeah, it was all right.
Good Alex Ross cover.
Yes, absolutely. And Skull the Slayer, man, that guy, I find him very entertaining.
He was one of those characters that were created in the 70s that I really enjoy. I really enjoy. I wish I could see him more, but I think he's one of those guys that doesn't sell well. So
right. Yeah,
I don't think you're going to see a lot of him.
You couldn't do a solo book with this guy, but sticking him in Weird World and making him this former Marine who's now a sword-wielding barbarian really makes him interesting.
Right.
Yeah. There's just really not a whole lot to say about this issue other than it's the conclusion of this Weird World storyline that they've been doing. And being the fifth issue, we're going to see a new storyline probably next week or next issue.
Right. Spider-Woman #5.
Well, she finally had the baby at the end of the last issue. And this whole issue is her adjusting to the life of being a mother.
I enjoyed this issue.
I actually kind of did too. And
I thought it was extremely entertaining.
Yeah, it's really entertaining. And, sometimes, like we complained with Angela earlier, you take these really interesting characters and you do really pedantic, pedestrian things with them. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? This is boring, and I can get this anywhere. But when you have a decent writer and a good artist, you can take someone like Jessica Drew, who is a badass superhero, and do something like explore a motherhood storyline and make it really entertaining.
Yeah, and it is entertaining. And what it comes down to, this is really what the story is about, is she's trying to justify how she's going to be a superhero and go out and put her life on the line when she has this little baby that she has to care for.
Right. I mean, the whole thing is this discussion of how do I continue to go out there and nearly die every other day when my priorities have shifted like they have.
Yes. Yeah. So it was really entertaining, good art, and we find out who the baby's father is, or is.
Yes.
So there's that. We won't spoil that for you.
I thought like the first opening couple panels where she's just going on and on and on about the struggles of motherhood to She-Hulk and Patsy Walker is really funny.
That was very funny.
She just goes on this rant about how she's just not prepared for this at all. And they're just standing there awkwardly like, okay.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
Yeah, it was really funny.
Yeah.
And then she's like having a come apart to talking to Carol Danvers. She can't watch scary movies anymore, and everything makes her, teary. And, she gets upset at the slightest thing. And, she leaves the baby one night with
Porcupine.
Yeah, the porcupine. I forget his name.
It doesn't matter.
He's babysitting for her. She goes out with her friends. They're all having a good time. All she can do is think about what's going on with the baby. And eventually she just gets this scenario in her head that the whole place is going to burn down. And she runs back to her apartment only to realize he's got it totally under control. Roger is his name, apparently. The baby's asleep. He's cleaned the apartment. He's doing dishes. She just bursts into the room thinking she's going to find it on fire and have to save her child, when he's just like, yeah, I got it. This is, I'm a terrible superhero, but babies I can do.
Yeah, I'm a great nanny.
Right. And, he has this discussion with her about, look, this is the hardest part of being a parent. It's going to get easier. So, at the end, you have her and Carol Danvers talking about how she's justified a way to put the Spider-Woman suit back on and go out and be a superhero being a mom.
And to be fair, if you had just had her race out and start being Spider-Woman again and not had this issue to transition into it, probably would have been a little awkward. But
it would have cheapened the whole thing.
Right.
And it would have made me go, hey, why are we even exploring this story? Why is Jessica Drew even having a baby if we're just going to go back to her being Spider-Woman and forget about it?
Right. So you did have an issue to transition. They made it entertaining, which was good. So, it's all good, man.
Yeah, it was a good issue. Now, what I would like to see moving forward is her being Spider-Woman and also being a mom. So you get them interspersed between the two. I don't really want to follow the adventures of Jessica Drew, the new mom.
Right.
I don't want every issue being, her having a hard time getting the baby to take a nap.
Right.
And I don't think
that every issue, and I don't think it will be. I think they dealt with it. Now they're going to move on.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what's going to happen here. Anyway, great book.
What wasn't a great book is
Star-Lord #5. It was better than it has been. Still not great.
Still not great. They tie up the storyline of how Peter Quill wound up in space. He actually winds up becoming the Star-Lord. He has to choose between his friends from Earth and Yondu and the Ravengers. He has to decide whether or not he's going to save the friends who are on whatever name of that spaceship is. You can tell how much I care.
Yeah.
And he chooses to save his friends from Earth, and he becomes the hero. He becomes Star-Lord. It's great.
Yes. And you find out how he got his name. Star-Lord is the name of a brand of vacuum cleaners in space.
Yeah. So, there you go.
So is this the end of this series, or is it gonna?
No, you get that. I was going to ask you this. And the last page is a splash panel. Is that him and Kitty Pryde on that page?
Let me go back and look at it.
I will give you time. Do you know Arnold Palmer just died? If you care who Arnold Palmer is.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just got an update on my phone.
Dang.
Yeah.
That dude's 100,000 years old. It's about time.
87.
Dude, 87 is not young.
I'm 52, man. 87's not that far away. Anyway.
Shut up.
Anyway.
That's a bummer.
This is a bad issue. It just hasn't been a great book. I mean, when we said we were going to get a Star-Lord book, I was looking for, King of Spartex, Star-Lord, not
Right. You were
what we
thinking
have
you're
here.
going to get like, Guardians of the Galaxy Star-Lord, not origin story of a dumb teenager Star-Lord.
Right.
Now that is done, maybe it's going to go somewhere. Yeah, it does. This is Kitty Pryde and Star-Lord at the end here. I guess we are getting a number 6.
Yeah, hopefully that's, we're finally going to get what we wanted, which is Peter Quill and Kitty Pryde.
Right. That's kind of what I wanted out of this book in the first place.
There you go.
Yeah. So hopefully it will improve.
Uncanny Inhumans number 6.
This is the conclusion of the previous issue where you're in Black Bolt's. Well, maybe not conclusion, but
continuation.
Yeah, continuation. That was the word I meant. Black Bolt has the Quiet Room, which is his club that he maintains. And it's the continuation of the last issue.
Is that it?
No. I had to pause. Man, I'll be completely honest. I don't give a rip about this.
I was looking. First off, Hervé Tartaglia did the cover art. Looks really good. I really enjoyed this. I disagree. I really enjoyed this book, and I believe it's going somewhere.
It's not that I don't like the book. It's this particular storyline of what's going on in the Quiet Room that I just don't give a rip about. It's an interruption of the current story going on, and it feels like filler to me.
I don't think it's filler. I think it's developing all of these characters, including where Black Bolt is, how he fits into what the Inhumans are doing right now. It's developing all the other Inhumans, including Reader and I'm thumbing through this. The detective whose name I can't remember. I think it's a good book.
Okay, well, when they get back to the main storyline, let me know. I'll care again. I've had a hard time with this book anyway because I'm not a big fan of the Inhumans, but they're becoming important in the Marvel Universe, so I'm reading it. But man, if you could not distract me and just get on with it, I'd appreciate it.
That's a great cover.
It is a good cover. I do like the cover.
The Astonishing Ant-Man number 6. That's also a good cover.
Yeah, it is a pretty good cover. Man, who is this book about? Is it about Scott Lang? Is it about the other Ant-Man that he was training just last issue? Is it about Scott Lang's daughter? Can this book just go away now, please?
I was going to say the better question is, do I care?
And this is not a terrible issue. What you have is Scott Lang's daughter, who used to be one of the Young Avengers. She lost her powers. She died, came back and lost her powers. And she's teamed up with this supervillain to get new powers. But man, this is an Ant-Man book, and so far there have been 3 different characters that this book is focused on.
And we still don't know why he's in jail.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, he's in jail. We're on issue number 6, and we haven't developed that storyline at all.
He's not even in this issue. He's made mention of, but Scott Lang is not in this issue.
No.
And it's just like, I feel like this book is wandering aimlessly. They wanted to put in an Ant-Man book, and this is a terrible showing. I don't think they had any plans when they put this thing together. They just wanted to put an Ant-Man book out. And I don't know what they're doing. This is not a bad issue. I mean, particularly the stuff with Cassie Lang and Kate Bishop. I like seeing them hang out together. And it's particularly the last panel is interesting because it makes you wonder what's in store for Cassie Lang moving forward. But this book is aimless, and they're not really doing anything. They're not telling a story. It's just kind of, what are we going to write this week? And I've not enjoyed it at all. How did you feel about it?
I mean, as a standalone Cassie Lang issue, it's okay. You know, so it's okay for just that issue by itself. If you just wanted a Cassie Lang standalone issue.
What this issue feels like is a number one for a Cassie Lang book.
Right.
If you were doing a solo book with her, this would be the first issue you'd write.
Look at what I just texted you. But that's not what this is. This is an Ant-Man book, and that's not what this is. So it's just this whole thing. It could be a power broker book. And the Villainess is a power broker. You can call it a power broker book better than what it is, because it's not an Ant-Man book.
Yeah, and what you just texted me is telling me that it's canceled.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good, because this book sucks. No one should be reading this. Don't waste your time.
What I sent you was, for those, I sent you a long list of books that are being recanceled for the Marvel now, some of which are being relaunched, some of which aren't. Yes, this book is getting canceled.
Yeah, good, because it's terrible and no one should read this. Moving on to Kanan number 12. Decent
book.
Yeah, I think we're done with his origin story for the most part. Now we're back. Now we're actually back to seeing Kanan do stuff with his team of rebels. Him and Ezra Bridger. He teams up with one of his old smuggler buddies to save an old friend. You have he runs into Captain Sloane, who, if you've watched the cartoons, you know that she's kind of his antagonist, and they tend to run into each other a lot. She's pursuing him actively, and then you have the Grand Inquisitor showing up at the end there. It was pretty good. I'm interested to see where that's going to go. I'm fairly certain we're done with his origin story now. In fact, I'm starting to wonder if this is the end of the book.
You know, I was going to ask you that. I didn't know if there was going to be another issue. Yeah,
I'm actually not sure, because when you flip to the end of the page, it goes back to Kanan number 1. Normally it would say, hey, if you want to keep reading, buy the issue now. And yeah, so maybe this is the wrap up of this series. Okay, well, now I'm a little sad. Anyway, if you're a fan of Star Wars and the Star Wars Rebel TV show, it's been a good read. If you haven't read the series, I would suggest going back and reading it. I actually watched the first episode of the 3rd season of Star Wars Rebels this morning, which deals with Kanan directly. And man, that show is so good. If you watch the first episode of the first season and see where that show has where it started and where it has gotten to now, it has matured so much. It's gone from lighthearted kids cartoon to almost a really dark dark show. You have a lot of you're in the thick of the Empire here. This is probably 10 years before A New Hope. And, the Empire is at its height, and things are bad. Things are not good. And, man, that show is so good. What you can do with a cartoon and the stories that you can tell with a cartoon, it's just amazing.
Well, there you go. And what
All
was
right.
your favorite book of the week?
You go ahead and tell me what your favorite was.
Power Man and Iron Fist #2, or Power Fist and Iron Man #2, as Spider-Gwen kept saying.
I know it was the nun lady at the halfway house.
Is that who it was?
Yeah. Iron Man and Power Fist.
Anyway.
Yeah, it was a great book. Really lighthearted, funny. If that book continues in the same vein, I'll continue reading it. My favorite book this week, if for no other reason than because it really surprised me, was Carnage #6.
I said you were liking that book, and you said no, you weren't.
No, I did like the book. We traditionally, you and I have not cared for it it was just slasher horror for the first couple of issues, and we didn't really care for it. But
for the first 5 issues, it was slasher horror.
Yeah, and it will probably continue to be so. But because of the reveal of some of that Elder Gods mythos that they seem to be exploring, it's going to be my pick of the week.
Yeah, there you go. The classic read this week with the Luke Cage Netflix show coming out in a couple of weeks, few days.
I was going to say it's like a week, isn't it?
It's a week, depending on when you're listening to this. It may already be out. And Marvel is dumping so many Luke Cage and Iron Fist, Power Man and Iron Fist books. I went back to find out where actually is his first appearance. Where's the first book? And it's actually Luke Cage, Hero for Hire, 1972 series, #1 is his origin book. It's actually, that's actually the name of it. Luke Cage, Hero for Hire, #1, 1972. This is classic 1970s writing, and it's right in the midst of the Shaft series.
Shaft.
Shaft. It's the black. It's right when the Black Power movies were coming out. That was kind of when they made Luke Cage, and Marvel was also looking for black heroes. So the two kind of coincided. That's how you get Luke Cage.
Yeah, I mean it's you had Shaft on TV, which was really popular. Which
in the theaters.
Was it a movie or a TV show?
A movie.
Okay, I thought it was a TV show in the 70s.
It was a movie.
Okay, it was a movie. Okay, you had the popularity of Shaft, which invariably Luke Cage is based on.
Yes.
That's where you got Luke Cage and Misty Knight and all those other characters that came about. Yeah.
So I read the first 2 or 3 issues this week, and it was good, and it lays a good origin. You find out. I'll tell you what, a lot of what's in those first 2 or 3 issues is going to be in the TV show. They're taking a lot of the TV show and getting it from those first 2 or 3 issues. I was surprised.
Well, that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and plus you get to see him in that sparkly gold shirt and the tiara.
Yes. Well, not in the first. I think that comes in the 2nd issue. So that's not exactly in the first issue, but it's in the 2nd issue.
Okay. So yeah, if you're looking forward to the Luke Cage TV series on Netflix here soon, this would be a good primer.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, we went pretty long this week. We had a bunch of books to discuss. So that pretty much wraps us up for the week. If you want to get in touch with us, tell us what you thought about this week's books, what you liked, what you didn't like.
Or if you want to discuss Arnold Palmer dying or the other rabbits, politics, What other rabbits did we chase this week?
Yeah, what you think about the new iPhone, what you think about wrestling this week. Email us.
Us struggling with the storage on our iPhones. Any of these issues, feel free to email us.
Yes, email us at 6monthsbehind@gmail.com. You can hit up our website at
www.6monthsbehind.com.
Fantastic. And as has become tradition, Pat, leave us a little wisdom before we go.
Failure is not a single cataclysmic event. You don't fail overnight. Instead, failure is a few errors in judgment repeated every day.
Oh, you really dropped some wisdom.
There you go.
Fantastic. All right, everybody. Until next week, we'll see you.
Peace.